Good morning.
Good morning, madam. Good morning.
We'll start the session, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to know, can I able to share my
Yes.
PPT?
You can share, sir. Before that, I'll ask Yogesh sir to introduce you to the participants. Then you can start your session, sir.
Okay.
Professor Yogesh sir, can you please introduce the speaker to the audience?
Morning. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sudhindra K.R., working as Associate Professor in the Department of ECE, BMSc College of Engineering. Sir has done his graduation in Electronics and Communication from PS College of Engineering, Mysore University, and MS by Research from PS College of Engineering under VTU Belgaum. And Sir has done PhD from PS College of Engineering under VTU Belgaum. So, Sir is having total of 20 years of experience in the field of electronics and telecommunication, and his expertise in GSM, BSS, GPRS, Edge, CDMA, WCDMA, LTE, and RF testing and measurement. So, working as subject matter expert in the field of mobile communication for IBM Bangalore, and Sir as a VTU subject expert for basic electronics in VTU e-learning center. He has delivered 20 technical talks across India and abroad. Earlier, he was working in ZTE Telecom India Private Limited and Idea Cellular Limited as network planning and optimization expert. Sir has published 30 research papers in international journals and conferences. Sir has guided PhD guided 3 members and guiding 3 members. He has successfully carried out research project of 20 lakhs and is a single point of contact for Nokia BMSc collaboration program. And Sir has taken many international assignments. To name few, RF post optimization evaluation for globe customers at Manila City, Philippines. IP, BSS, and RF training for customers of Iran and Ethiopia, GSM, BSS, and GPRS commissioning supervision for SPICE network at Kathmandu, Nepal, GSS, BSS, GPRS training for customers of Zimbabwe and China, GSM, BSS server management training for customers of TCE at Shanghai, China. Thank you to all, sir. So over to Sudhindra, sir.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Shall I share my PPT now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Share screen. Let me know whether my PPT is visible.
It is
Sir,
visible.
Okay, this is overview of my presentation. In fact, my talk will be more focused on radio spectrum for 5G technology. But before going to the 5G technology, I just wanted to give some information on existing 4G technology, that what we normally call it as long-term evolution, because 5G LTE evolution becomes 5G. So most of the 5G technology uses the existing LTE principle. Beyond that, it is going to get evolved. So I'll give some small information on LTE, then I'll move on towards the 5G technologies. So as suggested by the coordinators, mostly I'll be focusing on the physical layer. Okay, probably in other talks you will get exposed to other layers in the protocol layer of 5G technologies, but my focus will be mostly on the physical layer. So anytime you can interrupt me for any queries, or I can take up questions at the end of my presentation. So we all know our evolution of the mobile communication. It has started from first generation, and now today, at least in India, we are in fourth generation. Of course, some of the operators, they started giving 5G, but it is not completely 5G. It's the evolution of 4G. For example, Reliance started giving 5G to their subscribers. So under first generation, the commercially popular standards were AMPS and TACS. India, we didn't have this technology. During 90s, we had a second generation standards. Popular standards were CDMA and GSM. Of course, in all Asian countries, GSM was popular, and in all American continent, countries of American continent, CDMA was popular. So from 2G, evolution moved towards 3G technology. So under 3G, CDMA becomes CDMA 2000, and GSM becomes GPRS. And in fact, in between these two, there was a technology called Edge, then WCDMA. So second generation technologies, mobile technology, mostly focused on voice. Though there was a data provision, but data throughput was very less. It was around in and around 14 kbps to 18 kbps, not more than that. When it comes to 3G technology, along with the voice, focus was towards giving a very high data throughput, not only targeting the short message schemes or the fax, but also browsing the internet with a high data throughput. That was the focus for the third generation network. So voice and data throughput both were actually supported. So we had two popular standards under this, CDMA 2000 and WCDMA. As I said, CDMA 2000 was not so popular in Asian countries because most of the standards were with Qualcomm, and the price was a bit expensive. And initially, the global roaming option was not provided in the CDMA. So all these were the factors. And just for keeping continuity, I'm showing you the evolution of that CDMA 2000. So it started from 1X release 0 and moved towards EVDO and EVDV and stopped. Probably, if you remember, maybe during 2008 or 10, Tata has come up with Tata Photon Plus. I don't know, some of you might have purchased it. It was supporting a data throughput of 3.1 Mbps, and it was actually a CDMA 2000 EVDV. So this was the technology used by Tata. And after this CDMA EVDV, we could not find any evolution, and almost literally this evolution stopped and focused towards only the WCDMA evolution. So if you just go back and see, the GSM became GPRS, Edge, WCDMA. Under WCDMA, there was a lot of standards. Even today we are using this. It started with R99, and in fact it has reached R8. Actually, it's not showing in the PPT. Up to R6 I have shown. Only difference between these evolution is initially 3G was supporting 2 Mbps speed. Okay, you can see here 2 Mbps. Later on, HSDPA, high speed downlink packet access, came. It was supporting 14 Mbps downlink throughput, and uplink was still 2 Mbps here. Then there was a technology called HSUPA, 5.7 Mbps speed, uplink speed, and downlink is around 14 Mbps. And after this, during 2008 to 10, there was a technology called HSPA Plus. Probably today you can see in your mobile phone, whenever there is a very high coverage, it will show H Plus. That is nothing but HSPA Plus, high speed packet access plus. And theoretically, it can give a data throughput of 21 Mbps. So we can conclude that 3G evolution ended at HSPA Plus with a data throughput of 21 Mbps. So make a note of it. So it started with 2 Mbps throughput and moved towards 21 Mbps throughput. And another interesting thing about this 3G is the frequency is channel bandwidth is 5 megahertz, and it was operating at 2.1 gigahertz. I'll go in detail about this spectrum and the frequency band, how actually band looks. So most of the time whenever we study the standards, we talk about bands. We say that 2G was operating at around 900 megahertz or 1800 megahertz. When it comes to 3G, it was 2.1. When it comes to Wi-Fi, it is 2.4 gigahertz. And when it comes to 4G, 2.3 gigahertz. All these terminologies we'll try to understand in coming slides. Okay, this is a typical network entities of a second generation system. I have taken a GSM as a standard. So in any of the mobile communication system, you will find these entities. One is a mobile phone, and a base transceiver station will be there. Of course, if I say base transceiver station, it is nothing but that normally as a user we will be seeing the tower actually. So we will be seeing this tower everywhere. So on the top of the tower there will be antenna that you can always see. Okay, subscriber can only see this actually, an antenna on the top of the tower. But below the tower, normally there will be a room, and inside the room there will be an equipment called base transceiver station. So we use a term called BTS, so base transceiver station, because it can able to transmit the information through this frequency, or it can able to receive the information. So it can transmit as well as it can receive. Therefore, we call it as a base transceiver station. Many such base transceiver station will be connected to a switch. It is called as base station controller, and many such base station controller will be connected to another switch, which is called mobile switching center. And this mobile switching center will be connected to the mobile switching center of the other operator. Suppose this is a BSNL. So BSNL will get connected to the MSC, another MSC of the Airtel. So it will be connected, BSNL MSC will be connected to the another MSC of Vodafone, or like that. Okay, so this is a switching point where different operators will get connected to the existing network. So just a thumb rule I am telling. So in order to cover in and around 5 square kilometer, okay, 5 square kilometer, just imagine, normally they'll keep one base station. And in order to cover one small district, they'll keep one base station controller in every district. Say suppose Karnataka has 30 30 districts, you can expect in and around 30 base station controller. And for the entire state, in fact, one MSC is sufficient just to keep a backup. North Karnataka, they'll keep one MSC. Say in Belgaum and Bangalore, they'll keep one MSC. Maybe in Mangalore, they'll keep one or 2 to 3 MSCs per state. So this is a thumb rule. You can always try to understand how exactly the network entities will be placed across different region. And whenever you look into this, we have certain computer servers actually. You can see the server named HLR, or Home Location Register, Authentication Center, Equipment Identification Register, and Short Message Center. These are all the computer server that you can see in the network office. So Home Location Register is the one which shows which stores the subscriber information. For example, if there are 1 crore subscriber for Airtel, all that 1 crore subscribers information will be available in the Home Location Register. What is the information? It can be a mobile number, it can be a SIM number, or it can be address, it can be whether it's a postpaid or prepaid information. All this information will be made available to this available in this HLR. And there is a server called Authentication Center. It shows a cryptographic key. Every operator will have some key in Authentication Center. So Airtel will have a secret key. BSNL will have a secret key, like that. So this will be used during the initial stages of the call establishment in order to authenticate whether the subscriber is a genuine subscriber or a cloned subscriber. And all the hardware numbers, if you have a mobile, we all know there is a IMEI number. All these IMEI numbers will be stored in the equipment identification register. Suppose, of course, today we don't have that facility. Tomorrow, if anybody, steals your mobile and if you complain, then if EIR of Airtel, BSNL, Vodafone, Idea, everyone gets connected, then if they block it, nobody can able to reuse the mobile phone. That option can be done in the air. Of course, there are other options where they'll keep track of the mobile users under whitelist, gray list, like that. So many things are there. And very interesting part is the operational maintenance center. There will be an operational maintenance center to maintain this. Okay, this part. Normally we use a term called base station part, base station subsystem part. There will be operational maintenance center to maintain the MSC, SMSC center, HLR, etc. So maintain means to download the software, to upload the recent version softwares to all these network entities, and to check the alarms and to take the key performance indicators. Okay, all these will be done by the operational maintenance engineer sitting at the remote place. And one more last point I just wanted to tell about this is the connectivity. The connectivity between these entities can be by three ways. One is through wireless communication, that is a microwave communication. One is through optical fiber, okay, and another is through the coaxial cable. So connectivity between these entities can be any of these type. Nowadays, fiber optic is preferable because it is already laid across the country, and it is more effective in terms of bit error rate, less lossy transmission you can expect in the what you call fiber optic transmission. However, there will be a backup if anything happens to the fiber connectivity. The wireless will come into picture and will start operating. All right, before looking at the details about the standards, normally in a mobile communication, we define certain areas, what we call it as a cell. Maybe when you start reading the literature, you will find across all these terminologies. I'll try to give small definitions for this. Say area covered by one antenna, we use a term called cell. So cell is nothing but area covered by one antenna. And many such cells will form one location. So for example, Baswannagudi is one location area, or a Mandya district is a one location area. Many such location area will become MSC service area. For example, entire South Karnataka is one MSC service area. Many such MSC service area become one PLMN service area. For example, entire Karnataka or maybe entire India is one PLMN service area. Many such PLMN service area, entire globe, you can consider it as a GSM or a service area. So coming to the 3G architecture, so this was a basic 2G architecture. So when it comes to 3G, there was some modifications that has been done here. You can see here under 3G, we don't have a concept called BTS. We use a term called Node B. Node B is the equipment. So BTS becomes Node B, and BSC becomes radio network controller, and this part remains same. This is called as a core network part. So this part there was no change here, particularly this part remains same. Okay, when it comes to advanced version of what you call 3G, you can see here different entities. There was a MSC here. This MSC got splitted into MSC and MSC media gate server, MSC server and a media gate server, just to split the signaling and the traffic information. Because we all know whenever traffic is going to get established, if I say traffic, it may be voice or data, there will be a signaling that is required to handhold this traffic or to handhold the link during the duration of the call. Well, what happens, at least in countries like India and China, the subscriber base was so high. You just imagine around 2 crore subscriber for Airtel, 1 crore subscriber for Vodafone, huge traffic. MSC alone was failing to handle that huge traffic. Therefore, the researcher found that let us split this MSC into two parts, media gateway and MSC server, so that one will be taking care of only the traffic, and another say if I say MSC server, it will take care of only the signaling part. So signaling and the traffic part got split in the third version of the 3G technology. Okay, now when it comes to 4G, if you look into the 4G technology and going forward to the 5G technology, initially the network entities has become so simple. You just imagine in 2G we had a BTS, BSC, MSC. Now so many things got reduced into only 3 important elements. You can see in the 4G technology or the 5G architecture, basically it has only these 3 elements. So one we call it as a eUtron. So another name for this eUtron is eNode B, and we have a MME and a serving gateway, and others are in fact used for connecting to the external network. We have a PDN gateway and a PCRF, which is nothing but policy and charging rules function. So what is this eNode B? In fact, eNode B or eUtron, so name remains same. You can see here what actually happened. If you just compare with the 2G technology, there was a BTS and BSC. The BTS and BSC both combined together to form the eUtron. So there is no more BSC now in 4G and above technologies. We just call it as eUtron, or we can also call it as eNode B. So both the name same. So the functionality of this is nothing but, as indicated here, it's a combination of BTS and the radio network controller, or in a simple word, it is BTS plus base station controller. So both the functionalities will be in the single equipment called as eNode B. Okay, now then if you just compare with the core network elements, there was a MSC. There is no MSC now. Though MSC media gateway becomes MME, and MSC server becomes serving gateway. I'll just give small information. If somebody is making a voice call from the mobile station, in fact mobile station is called as UE in LTE terminology, then what happens, the voice call will have both voice information as the signaling information. Voice information will take this path, okay, and the signaling information will take this path. In other words, MMA handles the traffic and the serving gateway will handle the signaling part. And if you can recall, we had HLR, authentication center, equipment identification register. All these will come under one server. We call it as a home subscriber server. Of course, the capacity of the server is pretty high when compared to the HLR of the 2G technology, but they made it very compact. So there is a one HSS which includes the functionality of HLR, VLR, authentication center, equipment identification center. All these functionality will taken care by the HSS. Then we have a packet data gateway. It's just a gateway to transfer the information from one network to the another network. We have a PCRF, policy and charging rules function. So this is the entity which defines the rule for the network operation. If I say defines the rule for the network operation, it defines the rule for the prepaid connection, postpaid connection, data tariff plans. All these will be done in the PCRF module. Okay, another interesting feature of this 4G or the 5G technology is earlier the eNode B should be connected to the core network. This was the only path which was there in the earlier evolution, whereas now this eNode B can communicate with the neighboring eNode B. Okay, eNode B to eNode B communication is possible. In other words, BTS to BTS communication is possible now. And suppose if there is a interruption in this link, if there is link get disconnected, then the call or the data can still flow through the alternate path by communicating with the neighboring eNode B. This was the functionality that has been included in the 4th generation network. Therefore, we use a term called flexible ABASE technology. ABASE is the connectivity between the core network and the radio part. So we use the term called flexibility. The flexibility means it can able to communicate with the core network. If I say core network, this is the core network, this is the base station part. So it can able to communicate with the core network with alternate path as well. And another point that could be discussed under this LTE is flat and IP based network. So as I said earlier, the connectivity between the nodes, if I say connectivity between the nodes, maybe from antenna to node B to RNC, RNC to MGW, it was either through the what you call either through the coaxial cable or through the optical fiber or through the microwave technology. All these was operating under TDM technology, time division multiplexing technology. Whereas from the end of the 3G evolution or starting from the 4G, the connectivity was purely IP based, means the connectivity between node B to RNC, node B to node B, everything is through IP connectivity. Of course, it's IP through the optical fiber. Okay, it's an IP connectivity. So it has its own advantages of less investment, easy maintenance, reduced transmission delay, better reliability when compared to the other technologies such as what you call microwave or the coaxial cable technology operating at the TDM. Okay, so this is how you can expect a call going from 3G network to the 4G network. So these days, hopefully you all aware that there is a concept called voice over IP. So if this is a what you call the 4G network, under 4G network, voice can go either through TDM or through IP. If it is going through IP, it will become voice over IP. But your friend, for example, is using a 3G SIM, then this information going in a voice over IP will enter into an entity called IMS, IP Multimedia Service, where this voice over IP calls will get converted into TDM calls and it will be routed to the respective network. So in a simple terminology, IP Multimedia Service or IMS basically takes care of converting the voice over IP calls to the TDM calls or vice versa. All right, in recent times, at least from last 10 years, we had an interesting technology that got evolved, particularly under base transceiver station. So that we call it as what you call software defined radio. So this is an interesting technology. Let us try to understand what is this software defined radio. I'm just showing a snapshot of a software defined radio used by the operators. In fact, this is a software defined radio which can support 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, in fact 6G as well. And this is an indoor and this is an outdoor base station. So what is this software defined radio? Before this type of BTS started coming up, we had a traditional base transceiver station where it was very limited in its specification. So limited in its specification, if I say, that means that, say for example, if the operator is supporting the 2G GSM, tomorrow he wanted to upgrade himself to the 3G, the entire base station needs to be changed. That was a technology or the evolution that was we were having during 2000. You can just imagine that one base station cost around 10 lakh rupees. So if you take Karnataka as an example, on an average, an operator will have around 20,000 base station. 20,000 base station multiplied by 10 lakhs. Just imagine the capex involved in procuring that number of base stations in order to support higher technologies. The software defined base station has come up with a new hope for these operators, wherein once you can able to deploy this base station, software defined base station, it can be programmed to hardware remain same. It can be programmed to support 2G, 3G, 4G or 5G just by replacing the software in the respective control boards. So this is called as relatively a better technology compared to the previous technology. So software defined radio. So this is the In fact, there are three radio unit modules. So these radio unit modules are connected to the cables which are coming from the antenna. In fact, this is coming from one antenna, this is coming from another antenna, this is coming from the another antenna. Of course, if the subscribers are more, if you want to support more number of subscribers, even in this slot, we can put additional RRUs or the radio units to support more capacity. Even if this is not sufficient, on the top of it we can put one more cabinet and start adding these RU modules or the radio unit modules, so that you can support the required increase in capacity. So that is the biggest advantage of these base stations that you can expect today. And today this this entire base station has reduced to the size of just 1 feet by 2 feet. Now you can see only this much. So base station has become so small, which requires less power for maintaining the entire system. Okay, let us look into some of the interesting characteristics of this LTE before actually going into the physical layer part. So when you compare with the previous technologies, LTE has a high peak data rate. As I said, in 3G ends with 21 Mbps. That was the last speed that was supported by the 3G technology, even if after using HSPA plus 21 Mbps last. Whereas when it comes to LTE technology, you can just underline this. So it can support 150 Mbps throughput. So that too under downlink and uplink, it can support nearly 50 Mbps throughput. So almost nearly 5 times the throughput that was supported by the earlier technology. And just make a note of it, therefore, because I can take up this again in the next slides. So the frequency of operation in what you call in 4G technology, the channel bandwidth is 20 megahertz. Just to make a note of it. So 2G was operating at 200 kilohertz. When it comes to 3G, it was supporting 5 megahertz channel bandwidth. When it comes to LTE, 20 megahertz. When we are moving towards 5G, it supports channel bandwidth of 100 megahertz. So we started our journey from 200 kilohertz, moving towards 100 megahertz. All right, another interesting part of this LTE technology is a very, very flexible spectrum allocation. What is the meaning of flexible spectrum allocation? Though the LTE technology works for a channel bandwidth of 20 megahertz, maybe for a average or the mediocre operators investing 20 megahertz may be difficult in the initial stages. At least in India, only Reliance could able to invest 20 megahertz spectrum across 28 circles in India. Other operator started supporting this 4G technology by investing on 10 megahertz, later slowly shifted to 15 and moved towards 20 megahertz. Means the flexible in the sense, though the technology can support a maximum channel bandwidth of 20 megahertz, so it can also support 1.43 megahertz, 5 megahertz. That means if you have a 3G spectrum, still in that 3G spectrum, you can able to support 4G. And if you have 10 megahertz, still you can able to support the 4G spectrum. You need not buy the 20 megahertz spectrum at one shot. As we all know, spectrum pricing, at least in countries like India, is very high. Just to take one frequency from the respective government, we operator has to invest nearly around 15 to 20,000 crore with an annual maintenance of 3%. So which is a very huge amount. But however, the technology has evolved in such a way that backward compatibility is available, and also the flexible frequency spectrum option is also available, so that slowly operator can upgrade themselves from 3G to 4G and then moving towards 5G technology. So whenever we talk about LTE technology, there are so many terminologies. So if I say LTE technologies, most of the terminology is also used for the 5G. So one is OFDM, OFDMA, MIMO. I'll take back. I'll I'll try to explain what is OFDM in coming slides. So multi-frequency coexisting, so mobile broadband, multimedia broadcast, multicast services, so multiple input and multiple output antenna. So instead of having one single antenna for transmitting and receiving, so people have started doing a lot of research in keeping multiple antenna arrays. Say it may be a 2x2 or a 4x4 like that, so that overall throughput and the quality of the signal transmission was found to be improved. So all these technologies was included in the LTE. So let us look into the frequency band. Let us try to understand what is frequency band first, at least for the 2G technology. Then I'll try to move on towards 3G and 4G and 5G, how exactly the frequency band looks. Pay attention here. This is a typical 2G spectrum for a GSM. In fact, in India or in most of the Asian countries, these two bands are popular. One we call it as a 900 band. Another one we call it as a 1800 band. So other bands are not commercially made available to the operators. So if somebody asks what is 2G bands, you can simply say in terms of band, 900 band, it operates in 900 band, or it operates in 1800 band. For example, if you take Karnataka as an example, most of the old operators like BSNL, Airtel and Idea uses 900 band. The recent operators like Reliance operates in and Vodafone operates in 1800 band. When you look at any of the frequency band in the physical layer, always it will have two parts. One we call it as an uplink, another one we call it as a downlink. So what is the meaning of uplink? Uplink means if mobile communicates with the network, okay, with some frequency, so that we call it as a uplink. Say if mobile communicates with the network, so this frequency we call it as a uplink frequency. If the mobile communicates with the network, I mean, in other words, if the network communicates with the mobile, so then we call it as a downlink frequency. So pay attention, all our mobile technology works in the mode, what we call it as a duplex mode of communication. Under duplex mode of communication, there will be a dedicated frequency for the uplink, there will be a dedicated frequency for the downlink. In other words, there will be two frequencies, one for the uplink and one for the downlink. Therefore, if you look at any of the frequency spectrums, it will have two bands. One we call it as an uplink, another we call it as a downlink. Now I'll take up this band which starts from 890 megahertz, move towards 915, and the downlink band which starts from 935 and move towards 960 megahertz. I'll take up only this and try to give some information on this. So for example, if you look at the frequency band, as I said, it will have two parts. One we call it an uplink. So I'm just giving example of this frequency band. Let us take, this is the uplink band, which starts from 890 megahertz and ends with 915 megahertz. And this is an uplink band. I'll write UL. And there will be a band it starts from 935 megahertz and ends with 960 megahertz. Okay, now this is a downlink frequency, and if you look inside this band, there will be 124 frequencies. Okay, so there will be a 124 frequency number 1, frequency number 2, frequency number 3, like that. So there will be 124 frequencies, say 1, 2, 3, etc., etc., 124. So 124 frequencies. Similarly, in the downlink, there will be 124 frequencies. Okay, like this. There will be 124 frequencies like this, 1, 2, etc., etc., 124. Now, if it is 2G, okay, if it is 2G technology, this frequency band, okay, this frequency band will be 200 kilohertz. Okay, 200 kilohertz. So 200 kilohertz, 200 kilohertz, 200 kilohertz, like that. There will be 124 frequencies. Of course, there will be a guard band here, 100 kilohertz and 100 kilohertz, which is not used. So if I say, because most of the times we use these terminologies, and when you read the literature, you'll have a lot of confusion. So what is band? Normally we say 2G operates in 900 band. So if I say 900 megahertz band, you should think that it will have a uplink band, it will have a downlink band. In the uplink band, it starts from 890, ends with 950. Downlink 935, it goes up to 960. Inside the band, it will have so many frequencies. Each frequency is of 200 kilohertz if it is 2G. If it is 3G, it looks similar, but individual frequency will have a bandwidth of 5 megahertz. If it is 4G, individual frequency will have a 20 megahertz channel bandwidth. If it is 5G, that individual frequency will have a 100 megahertz bandwidth. Okay, so this is about bandwidth and the band. Now, suppose I am an operator. I wanted to establish a new, mobile network under the name, say, BMSCE. Then I need to buy the spectrum. Okay, in GSM, normally they will give a group of 21 frequencies. So group of 21 frequencies means 21 frequency. Each frequency is of 200 kilohertz. You just imagine. So you can send these frequencies from the base station, and the mobile can able to communicate. Okay, mobile can able to communicate with these frequencies. Of course, if it is GSM, one frequency can communicate with 8 subscribers. Okay, 8 subscribers. Okay, now operator has to pay for these 21 frequencies nearly 15,000 crores only for Karnataka. If they wanted to use it for all the states, 15,000 crore into 29, that much amount they need to pay to the government. All right. Okay, so if it is what you call 3G technology, they'll not give group of frequencies, they'll give an individual frequency, because one frequency itself will have a 20 megahertz bandwidth. So therefore they don't give what you call group of frequency. They'll give just one frequency of 20 megahertz bandwidth, pay 15,000 crore. Similarly, if it is 4G, okay, if it is 4G, again they'll give one frequency. It is of 3G, it is 5 megahertz. 4G, it is 20 megahertz. So if you buy 5G frequency from the government, one frequency, it is 100 megahertz. So I hope it is clear now what is band, what is uplink, what is downlink, what is the meaning of channel bandwidth or the frequency bandwidth. So with this information, I'll just move ahead with other technology spectrum. So this is the 2G spectrum. As I said, it operates in 900 or 1800. When it comes to 3G spectrum, so you can see here in the 3G spectrum, the normally we tell, I mean, in 3G, the spectrum will be, you can see here, at least in India, it is at 2100 megahertz. So we simply call it as 2.1 gigahertz. Okay, it operates in 2.1 gigahertz in all most of the Asian countries. So when it comes to LTE, you can see here, it starts from band 1 to band 40. So in India, they are giving the frequency from band 40. You just see here, the frequency is from 2300 megahertz to 2400 megahertz. So if I say 2300 to 2400 megahertz, let me write it here. So 4G band, okay, I'll write it again. So 2300 megahertz to 2400 megahertz. Therefore, we use a term, okay, 4G operates in 2.3 gigahertz. So both the name same, 2.3 gigahertz. So here, I told you earlier, 4G, one channel bandwidth is 20 megahertz. So 2400 minus 2300, you will get 100 megahertz. This 100 megahertz is divided into 5. Okay, now this will be 20 megahertz. Another frequency number 2 is 20 megahertz, 20 megahertz, 20 megahertz, 20 megahertz. So you just imagine in the 2G, it was having around 124 frequencies. Here we have around 5 frequencies, but the channel bandwidth is more. Now government will give like this, say this frequency BSNL, the frequency number 4 or 5, this will be for Idea, frequency number 1 Airtel. So they'll take 15,000 crore rupees and they'll allot, okay, you can use this frequency. So that now, say if it is a Airtel, so they'll use this frequency number 1. Okay, there is a BSNL tower, maybe they'll use a frequency number 5. So this subscriber will get frequency number 5, this subscriber will get frequency number 1. And another interesting thing, at least in 4G, is this can be operated in 2 modes. Even in 5G, the 4G is operated in 2 modes. One we call it as a TDD, another one is FDD. So TDD is time division duplex, FDD is the frequency division duplex. So in TDD, operator needs to purchase 1 uplink and 1 downlink. Okay, so 20 megahertz uplink, 20 megahertz downlink, invest 20,000, 15,000 crore, 15,000 crore. Whereas this is FD technology, FDD, frequency division duplex. Whereas in time division duplex technology, operator can buy only 20 megahertz one frequency. All right, now the same frequency can be used both in uplink as well as downlink. Okay, so the switching will be so fast that around it transmits as well as it receives in the same frequency at different instant of time. So that is called as TDD technology. Just for information, Airtel uses TDD technology, Reliance uses FDD technology. Technology wise, therefore, Reliance network is little more having better speed when compared to the Airtel network. All right. Any doubt up to here? Okay, I'll go a little more deeper into this spectrum. So this is a LTE spectrum. I have taken a simple example of there is some formulas, in fact, to calculate the downlink and the uplink. In fact, the downlink frequency is equals to FD low plus 0.1 NDL minus NDL offset. So all these, in fact, can be obtained by the spectrum. You can see a FDL low, N offset. Okay, all this information will be available. You can easily calculate it. For example, Reliance has got a frequency number of 38800. So therefore, using this 38800, so we can able to calculate what is the downlink frequency. It comes around 2.3 gigahertz or 2315 megahertz. So this is the frequency of the Reliance in Karnataka. I just calculated this so that you can able to understand. Of course, you can see 2300 to 2400 is the entire band. In that, 2315 is the center frequency for the Reliance. So this is how the Reliance operate. Maybe next 100 megahertz will be given for next 20 megahertz will be given for the Airtel. Next 20 megahertz will be given for the BSNL, and it goes like that. All right, so when we look at the physical layer of the 4G or the 5G technology, it is of interest to look at the frame structure. So I don't know, some of you might have studied the GSM. There we had a frame structure of 8 slots. So one frame, 8 slots. So one frame, 8 slots will support 8 subscribers. It was like that. So here, in case of 4G technology, one frame means you can count here, it will have 20 time slots. The numbers are named like this 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to 19, and it repeats. Okay, this frame will repeat 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. 19, again 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. 19. It starts repeating it. So what is this frame? In the physical layer, it looks like a frame. Okay, 0 to 19 is the frame. And if you look at one slot under this, just count here, it can carry 7 symbols. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 symbols. Okay. Just to make you understand, probably you just imagine there is a base station. Okay, there is a base station, and this is a mobile station operating in the LTE technology. So in between mobile station and the base station, the these frames will come into picture. Okay, so there are 19 slots in each frame, and in one slot, if you see, there are 7 symbols: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the symbols are the one which carries the information depending upon the type of modulation used. So we have a different types of modulation. It starts from QPSK. It starts from QPSK modulation. It starts from QAM. Okay, we have 16 QAM, 32 QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation. Okay, so depending upon the type of modulation, these symbols will carry the information. I'll go a little more deeper into this in the next slide, but just for timing, you just imagine that in one frame there are 20 time slot. Every time slot will carry 7 symbols. In fact, if you look at these time slot, few time slots can operate in uplink, few time slots can operate in downlink if it is operating in the TDD mode. So what are all the time slot that should be operated in the uplink or the downlink can be decided by configuring this TDM configuration number from the operational maintenance. Normally we'll configure in such a way that number of downlink time slots will be more when compared to the number of uplink time slots. Okay, now I'll get into this OFDMA time frequency structure. Just look back to this. This is a one frame. If you look into this, there are 20 time slot. In one time slot, I said how much? 7 symbols, isn't it? Now I'll just look into this one time slot alone. So I'm just looking into this one time slot alone. I said 7 symbols. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 symbols. Now these 7 symbols are carried among 1,200 subcarriers. So this is, just see this. Okay, this is the frequency. Okay, this is the time. This is a time. Okay, this is the frequency. So in LTE, as I said, what is the frequency? Is 20 megahertz. In 20 megahertz, this 20 megahertz, the entire frequency is 20 megahertz. This will be divided into small frequencies. Okay, this will be divided into small frequencies. Each frequency is of 15 kilohertz. Okay, pay attention. The 20 megahertz is divided into small frequencies, each of 15 kilohertz. So nearly you will get 1,200 such frequencies. We call it as subcarriers. So in LTE as well as in 5G technology, we use a term called subcarriers. Subcarriers means what? If you take a complete channel bandwidth, say in LTE, if it is 220 megahertz, this 20 megahertz is divided into small frequencies. So each of 15 kilohertz, and you will have 1200 subcarriers. Now pay attention. There are 20 time slots. I am looking at one such time slot. Okay. In one time slot, there are 7 symbols. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 subcarriers into 7 symbols, okay, will become one resource block. So pay attention now. So one time slot, this time slot can carry 7 symbols. These 7 symbols can go among these 1200 subcarriers. In that 1200 subcarriers, they'll make a group of 12 subcarriers. 12 subcarriers into 7 symbol becomes one resource block. Like that, in one time slot, because of this 1200 subcarriers, there will be 100 resource block. So what is the takeaway from this? What is the meaning of this 100 resource block? Say suppose this is a LTE mobile network. Okay, this is the mobile station. This is the frequency coming. In this frequency, I'm looking at one time slot. In one time slot, if there are 100 resource block, I can give all 100 resource block to this mobile station so that a high throughput data can be transmitted from the mobile station to the network. Or suppose in place of one mobile station under this network, there are two mobile stations, then 100 resource blocks can be shared among these two. It will become 50 resource block by 50 resource block. And if there are like that n number of mobile station, this 100 resource block will be shared among n number of mobile station. But in the network, we'll plan in such a way that every mobile station should get at least 2 resource block. So 2 resource block means, you just imagine in one time slot there are 100 resource block. Every mobile station in the peak hour, if they get only 2 resource block, throughput will be less. During non-peak hour, if all the resource block will be given to the only one subscriber, throughput will be more. So on an average, if you keep at least 2 resource block for every mobile station, in one time slot, it can support nearly 50 subscribers. There are around 20 time slot. So 1000 subscribers under one base station can be supported by this LTE technology. So of course, now you can see here, these are all the symbols. So this symbol, every symbol will carry certain bits depending upon the type of modulation. If it is a QPSK modulation, every symbol will carry 2 bits. If it is a QAM modulation, it can carry 3 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, like that. If every symbol carries more number of bits, throughput will be more. If every symbol carries less number of bits, throughput will be less. So how this will be decided? Suppose if this is a network, so, this is a network, and if the subscriber is very closer to the network, okay, closer to the network, obviously the signal strength is very high, then high level modulation, say 64 QAM will be used, because error detection and error correction bits will be less. Number of bits assigned to that will be less. If the subscriber is away from the mobile station, then there are chances that if the subscriber is away from the base station, suppose if this is a mobile, so if it is away from the base station, then error, by the time the information reaches this place, there are chances more error detection, error correction bits will be more, therefore modulation bits will be less. So QPSK is used, just 2 bits. If the mobile is moving towards the tower, 64 QAM modulation. So I mean, summary is, higher level modulation techniques will be used if the subscriber are closer to the tower, therefore throughput is more, and the lower level modulation techniques are used if the subscriber are away from the tower, therefore the throughput is less. Therefore sometimes whenever you are using the 4G or 5G network, you feel that sometimes the signal suddenly strength suddenly goes down, or your throughput will go down. Sometimes the throughput will be very high. All these is because of the link quality and the type of modulation technique used and the number of subscribers that are available under one particular base station. If the number of subscribers available under one base station is too high, obviously your throughput will be less because number of resource block assigned to the subscriber will be less. So on an average, if you get only 2 resource blocks at a particular time, though 4G supports around 100 Mbps throughput, you may be expecting only 2 Mbps throughput. If the subscribers under one particular base station is less, or you are the only one subscriber, then all the 100 resource blocks will be given to you. Therefore, you can expect a very high level of throughput. So this is how the OFDMA technology actually works in LTE and the 5G. So this is just a small analysis. If all the 20 megahertz bandwidth is used, the number of resource block will be 100. Suppose if you don't have that much money to buy 20 megahertz channel bandwidth, you might have brought only 10. Then the number of resource block only 50. If the number of resource block is only 50 under one base station, you can expect only around 500 subscribers. If you buy a 20 megahertz spectrum under one base station, you can support nearly about 1000 subscribers. So this is just a calculation which actually shows what happens if you have a lesser channel bandwidth. Number of resource blocks will be less, and when the number of resource block is less, overall throughput will be less. Of course, as I said, there are 1200 subcarriers. These 1200 subcarriers are further divided into the DC subcarriers, reference subcarriers, data subcarriers, and the guard subcarriers. The DC subcarriers are the one which will be available in the center of the 20 megahertz spectrum, and the reference subcarriers are the one which is available at the in between the data subcarriers, basically used to tune the mobile station to that of the network frequency. Data subcarriers are the group of subscribers subcarriers basically used for transmitting the information, maybe the data information or the voice information. So overall, these 1200 subcarriers that is coming out of from 20 megahertz bandwidth is divided into 4 categories: DC subcarriers, reference signal subcarriers, data subcarriers, and guard subcarriers. Just for interesting, people have done some small calculation. You can see the throughput, that is bits per second, assuming 64 QAM modulation technique. I said when the 64 QAM modulation technique is assigned to a subscriber, when the subscriber is very closer to the base station and the link quality is the highest in between the mobile station and the network. So assuming that 64 QAM is assigned to a subscriber, I'm just calculating what will be the theoretical throughput. So subscriber 1200 subcarriers is assigned, assuming that all the subcarriers is given to a single subscriber. Time slot, there are 20 time slot. Number of symbols time slot, if it is a 64 QAM, the number of symbols per time slot will be 7, and if the 64 QAM is used, bits per symbol will be 6. If the modulation technique is lower order modulation technique, say QPSK, the bits per symbol will be 2. So I have taken 6 here because I have assumed that 64 QAM is assigned. So if you calculate all this per 10 millisecond frame, you get a throughput of 100 Mbps throughput, and we are going to use a 2x2 antenna. Therefore, the throughput will get multiplied by 2, nearly 200 Mbps throughput, and we are going to do error detection, error correction. So we are going to puncture 3 bits for every 4 bits. Then you can expect the throughput of 151.1 Mbps. So theoretical speed in LTE, we say a theoretical speed of 150 Mbps. This is possible if only one subscriber is below one particular base station and all the 1200 subcarriers is given to one user. Then you can expect a theoretical data throughput of 151 Mbps. However, practically you cannot expect a single subscriber standing below the tower. You can always find a number of subscribers. Because of that, the throughput will be very less. On an average, operator will strive hard to maintain a data throughput under LTE will be in and around 3 to 8 mega bits per second. Okay, let us look into the technology aspect of this LTE or 5G. We have a multiple access technology. So the 2G and the 3G basically used FDMA and CDMA technologies. Of course, CDMA technology, CDMA standard uses CDMA technology, but popular was TDMA technology, where one frequency can be divided into n number of time slot, normally 8 time slot. So one frequency supports only 8 subscriber only. In earlier calculation, I showed in LTE, one frequency support nearly 1000 subscribers because of this orthogonal frequency division multiple access. Let us try to understand the notion of orthogonality. So if you look at a simple FDMA technology, normally if I have a bandwidth of 5 megahertz, then this bandwidth will be divided into a set of frequencies, say frequency number 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see here there will be a guard band in between one frequency to another frequency. Okay, this is a guard band you can expect. Whereas in OFDMA technology, the frequencies are assigned or combined in such a way that there will be no guard band, but it is planned in such a way that there will be an overlapping frequency existed. So because of that, the number of frequencies in a given spectrum will be more. You can see here there was 4 here, whereas here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So obviously if there are more subcarriers, more symbol rate, and it supports more number of subcarriers. So what is this OFDMA? We always talk about OFDMA in 4G and 5G technology. So let us briefly try to understand what is this OFDMA. So we all know this is a simple sinusoidal signal that we are looking at time domain. So when you look this sinusoidal signal in the frequency domain, it is just a spectrum. One frequency means one spectrum. All right. So now if you so any sinusoidal signal, what we call it as a carrier in frequency domain, we'll try to put it like this, a Dirac function or a simple spectrum. Okay, it looks like a spectrum like this in frequency domain. Similarly, a square signal in the time domain, this is the time domain, a square signal will be seen as a sinc signal in the frequency domain. You apply the Fourier transform to this, so then we'll get a sinc signal. So just see here, sine will become a Dirac function, whereas the square will become what you call the sinc function. Okay, now these two are combined in such a way that the width of this, okay, this width of this will result in the what you call the width of this sinc function, and the frequency of this will actually varies the frequency of this. So that means you can see here a subcarrier is basically a combination of a sinusoidal signal available at certain instant of time. So you can see here this subcarrier, if it is available at more instant of time, then this width will be less. Okay, it will become narrower. If it is available at short instant of time, then this width will be more. Now the frequency, the duration of the symbol depends on the width of the subcarrier. The frequency center of the subcarrier linked to the frequency of the sub. Now these subcarriers are arranged in such a way that you can see here it is arranged closely because of the existing technology in such a way that at any point of time, if you are going to read this subcarrier, information carried by this subcarrier, there will be no interference because other subcarriers will be going through 0 at this instant of time. Means the tail of the sync function will go through zeros at any particular instant of time. So that is why more number of carriers using this technology can be accommodated within a short span of time. So therefore, OFDMA allows high density of carriers without inter-channel interference. So this is how most of the carriers are packed, and helps in higher carrier density and thereby supporting higher throughput and higher capacity. Of course, there are certain problems in this OFDMA. So one, we call it as an intersymbol interference. So the intersymbol interference is basically happens because of the signal propagation. We all know that when the signal gets propagated from the mobile station to the network, it might have get transmitted through reflection, refraction, diffraction, things like that. So because of that, there will be an overlapping of the information that comes through the direct transmission and that comes through the reflected version of the information that is being sent. So because of that, there will be an intersymbol interference. So in order to tackle the intersymbol interference in OFDMA technology, we use a concept called guard time. You can see here a guard time is designed between every symbol transmission, so that even if it gets overlapped, my receiver will be sensitive enough to collect only information during this time, but not during the guard time. Whatever the information, the guard time will be ignored, so that only useful information will be constructed. So another way of handling this is adding the cyclic prefix, where the ending point of the symbol is given to the starting point. The starting point of the symbol is given to the ending point. Through the research and simulations, we observed that even by adding this cyclic prefix, so the concept of guard time can be avoided, but still it can able to overcome the intersymbol interference problem. So how does this OFDMA transmitter looks like? So this is a diagram which actually will be made available both at the mobile station end as well as at the base transceiver station end. So one part of the the hardware of the mobile station will have an OFDMA transmitter, so which actually does the OFDMA functionality that I have explained just now. I'm just giving some example. Suppose this is a bit stream which is made available after analog to digital conversion. Let us assume that this is a voice bit stream. First it goes to the encoding, where error detection, error correction concept will be added here. So some redundancy bits will be added in order to avoid in order to handle the errors that occurs during the transmission. Then after this encoding, it goes to the modulation module, where depending upon the requirement, service requirement, different types of modulation can be assigned. In this block diagram, I have just shown the QPSK modulation. Every 2 bits will be assigned with one symbol, or every one symbol will carry 2 bits in the QPSK modulation. So that we'll have 0 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 1. Entire this information now will be carried by the subcarrier 1, subcarrier 2, subcarrier 3, and subcarrier 4. So now output of the digital modulation will be converted into parallel and channel mapping. So under channel mapping, different frequencies will be assigned. So all these will be in the frequency domain. The frequency domain signal will get converted into time domain signal using the IFFT. After IFFT, the cyclic prefix will be added. Then parallel to serial, okay, parallel to serial, add cyclic prefix, send it to the power amplifier, and then to the mobile station antenna or the base station antenna. Ultimately it get transmitted through the air interface. And the receiver, similar operation, but in the reverse end takes place. So it receives the signal and removes the cyclic prefix, converts the time domain into frequency domain, subcarrier demapping, demodulation, deinterleaving, decoding, and the original information will be made available back to the user. So that this is how overall OFDMA technology works from the hardware point of view. Okay, so with this information, I'll just move on to some of the interesting features of the LTE. So before that, just for continuity of this topic, so there are different channels that are available in the air interface. So normally we call it as a physical channels. You can see here so many physical channels are there. So one we call it as a primary synchronization channel, secondary synchronization channel. These are all the channel that comes into picture during the initial access to the network. Then we have a broadcast channel. Once the mobile gets connected to the network, through this broadcast channel, most of the system related information will be made available to the mobile station. Then there is a what you call downlink shared channel. This is a channel which actually carries the data information. If I say data, it may be an internet data or the voice data. So like this, these are all the downlink channels. Similarly, we have a uplink channel. So random access channel, uplink control channels to carry the control information, and uplink shared channel basically carries the payload. Just an information here to show you how exactly the mobile gets connected to the network. As soon as you insert the mobile station under 4G or the 5G, turn on the mobile station. So this is a downlink from the network to the UV. It is a downlink arrow mark. So primary synchronization channel comes, then the secondary synchronization channel, the reference signal comes, the broadcast channel will come. You can see there are so many channels that operates in the downlink. At the end of this, we have a channel called downlink share channel, where all the system related information is available to the mobile station. The system related information includes the cell identity, the BTS information, the core network related information. All this information will be made available to the mobile station, and at this stage we say cell selection has happened. Now it is ready to make a call or receive the call. Okay, this is how the different physical channels actually comes in the radio interface. I'm talking about this radio interface that is between the base station and the mobile station. So if somebody wants to make a call, then you can see here uplink arrow mark, that is from the mobile network to the radio network. The random access channel comes. Then in acknowledgement to the random access channel, PDSCHE channel comes. And at the end of all this signaling information, then there will be a downlink or the uplink transmission that actually happens either through the downlink shared channel or through the uplink shared channels. Okay, this is all about the 4G information. So I'll quickly move on to some of the interesting radio aspects of the 5G technology. I think I have still 20 to 30 minutes time. Any doubt you can just ping me now. Any doubt? Shall I move on? Okay, so I'll take up this 5G part for next 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes I'll keep it for question and answers. Okay, so these are all the topics I'll try to discuss as quickly as possible. Particularly, I'll focus more on the radio part. So probably we all know this 5G is the term used to describe the next generation network. So we have come through various evolution. As I discussed earlier, we started our journey from first generation, now moving towards 5G. This is an interesting the PPT, the slide which I have taken from Huawei Technologies. So it actually says that 5G will not come as it is without evolving from LTE. In fact, 5G is expected to come through evolution starting from LTE-A, LTE-B, LTE-C, and each evolution steps will have a lot of interesting features. For example, when it comes to LTE-A, you can expect nearly 10 times the throughput what we have in LTE. If I say LTE, by now probably we should able to guess nearly about 150 Mbps. So LTE advanced 150 Mbps into 10 times. LTE B means 150 into 30 times, 150 Mbps into 30 times. LTC, you can just imagine 150 into 1000 times. So we speak in terms of gigabits per second throughput. So in LTE we had only OFDMA, MIMO technologies, whereas when it comes to an advanced LTE, we'll have a carrier aggregation. Probably I'll touch up this topic before I end my presentation today. We have a carrier aggregation, higher order multiple input, multiple output antenna. We had only 2x2 here. We are expecting 64x64 antennas. Then we have a multi-stream aggregation. Okay. So a lot of additional features are going to get added in other versions of LTE technology. So of course, all these probably might have covered by the other speakers. So we'll look at 5G with the different requirement. We may look at energy saving option under LTE, or maybe we'll look at only a peak data throughput, but not worried about the energy. Or maybe if it's an agricultural application, think of adding thousands of sensors in an agricultural field, then probably we may be looking at adding a number of devices per cell. Okay. Or if you are looking at a type of speed that you expect when you are traveling in a very high speed train, then probably 5G will able to support a data throughput, expected data throughput even at a traveling speed of 500 kilometer per hour. So 5G has in fact different dimension. So as per our requirement, operator can able to customize the service. They may design the service for customized requirements. Okay, so many applications are there in 5G. I'll not get into it, but I just wanted to discuss the radio part under this 5G. So look at the radio spectrum. So we understood how was the radio spectrum in 2G. It was actually 900 or 1800. When it comes to 3G, it was 2300 megahertz. When it comes to 4G, it was around 2100 megahertz or 2.1 gigahertz. Okay, but when it comes to 5G, you can see here, because many times our researchers will be working in the areas of antenna design or areas of Internet of Things application, network layers. But we need to understand that as per ITU, the 5G spectrum will be in the range of 3 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. So now we don't have a concept of spectrum scarcity at all. Of course, if you have money, if you can able to buy the spectrum, you can buy the required amount of spectrum. So it starts from 3 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. Probably to start with, they may not go beyond 10 gigahertz. So most of the operator across the world are looking to give or to support 5G spectrum between 3 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz. So you can just imagine in between 3 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz, the spectrum bandwidth, you can just think that one channel bandwidth will be nearly 100 megahertz. Okay, LTE stopped at 20 megahertz channel bandwidth. When it comes to LTE, I mean 5G, you can expect 100 megahertz bandwidth between 3 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz to start with. Of course, going forward can go up to 300 gigahertz. In fact, there are two different types of evolution that we are expecting at 5G. Suppose I am a existing operators like Idea, Vodafone, or a BSNL or Airtel. I wanted to support 5G network to my subscriber. Then I'll go to this option, what we call it as a backward compatibility radio access technology. So backward compatibility means I'll be still supporting 2G, 3G, 4G, but I'll upgrade my system to support for 5G. That's called as backward compatible RAT. Or I may be a new new service provider altogether, wanted to invest on 5G area, then still I can able to come up with a 5G system deployment across the country and support the subscribers on this new technology. Then we call it as a non-backward compatible. It's something like a dedicated mobile technology, 5G technology, without having a backward compatible supports like supporting 2G, 3G, and 4G. And if that is the case, if it is a backward compatible, then the between 1 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz, that is what they are targeting. If it is a non-backward compatible, then it will be between 10 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. A couple of things are being explored under 5G. One is Wi-Fi to LTE interworking. There are different modes of operation under this. One is Wi-Fi offload, where a user connected to LTE is moved by the operator to Wi-Fi completely, depending upon the traffic load requirement. Another one is a Wi-Fi aggregation, where LTE, which controls data that is sent over LTE and Wi-Fi, entire LTE will take care of control of this Wi-Fi as well as the existing LTE. Another one is license assisted access, where LTE is used in the unlicensed spectrum, sharing the spectrum with Wi-Fi. And so these are the different modes of operations that we are expecting in 5G technology. Coming to the non-standalone, you can see here there are different mode again here. So two mode. One is the mobile is taking the information from the primary LTE network and also from the secondary carrier, or it can take from primary licensed LTE, then both uplink and downlink under uplink LTE. So these are all the two different ways carrier aggregation that we can think about it. So operating at licensed and the unlicensed band. So this option right now it is not available. Either it completely it will get switched over to the Wi-Fi, whereas here there will be a complete control by the network to switch from the licensed to the unlicensed band. Okay, these are the two different options you can see here. And another interesting feature in 5G is the carrier bonding. We use a term called carrier bonding. What is the carrier bonding? We know that in LTE, one channel bandwidth will be of 20 megahertz. So I can combine multiple such bands, 20 megahertz, 20 megahertz, like that, and make it 100 megahertz so that it works for 5G. Suppose I don't have that much money to invest on 100 megahertz. Maybe I can have 20 megahertz and 20 megahertz. I'll buy another 20 megahertz with 40 megahertz with the flexible spectrum concept. Still, I can able to support what you call 5G. So this is called as carrier bonding. So another interesting part under this is under carrier bonding, people are also thinking to combine the 20 megahertz, 20 megahertz channel bandwidth from two different bands. Maybe one is from 2100 megahertz band, other from beyond 3 gigahertz band, two different 20 megahertz chunk to combine to become 40, or 20 megahertz from different band combined together make 100 megahertz. So all these options are actually made available in the 5G technology. So there is a concept called device to device communication. So once you suppose if you want to make a call from one person to another person within a room, then the signaling information need not go to the base station, but it will sense the neighboring device and start communicating with each other. What we call it as to device communication. Again, there are three different modes of operation under that. One is cellular unaware device to device, cellular aware device to device, and cellular controlled device to device communication. So I'll explain this and I'll stop my today's presentation. What we call it as full duplex radio technology. So here both the transmission and reception happens on the same resource block. So the advantage of this is, if both transmission and reception happens on the same resource block, it doubles the capacity, improves the feedback, and overall latency is reduced. Since overall latency is reduced, you can expect higher throughput as per the simulation results. Of course, there are certain challenges that we usually call it as interference from cell and neighbors due to same resource block. And there are certain methods to mitigate this interference problem. So you can see here where with the, for example, this is a base station. There is a relay over here, and this is the mobile station. So both uplink and downlink, it operates in the same resource block, and the same frequency will be used between the relay as well as the mobile station. So the idea behind this is to reach the end user as much as possible without investing on the additional spectrum. So these are all the different modes of operation that actually happens in the radio sections of the 5G technology. So with this, I'll stop my presentation and I'm ready to take up questions. If any questions, I can take up. If no questions, then I thank you for the head of the department, Information Science, for providing an opportunity for me to share my experience in this platform. So thank you very much, all of you.
Sudhindra sir, it was an excellent explanation and presentation. Thank you for the knowledge sharing in this FDP, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Let me check the chat box if any questions are there.
So participants are telling they want to listen to you once again.
Sudhindra sir, one question is there.
Yeah. Yes.
How we divide the time slot ಅಂತ ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
How do we divide the time slot?
Okay. Okay, right. So it is okay. Probably we can think like this. I'll try to explain the TDM. Maybe let us. I'll go back a little. Earlier version of the mobile technology. So normally what happens in a very earlier version of mobile technology during 1980s, this was the technology, what we call it as FDMA. There was just a frequency coming from the network, and mobile station used to access it. Of course, if I say, yeah, screen is available. Visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, of course, if I write one frequency, we must always assume that there will be two frequencies, one for uplink and one for downlink. So there was no time division here actually in this. Okay, but later on during 1990, the mobile technology started using the concept of time division multiple access, where there will be a frequency, there will be some mechanical stators and rotor arrangement here, but it will be given, the same frequency will be given to the mobile station 1, 2, 3, etc. up to 8, mobile station 8. So there was the same frequency. First it will be given to this, then it can able to get receive it, it can able to get receive it, it can able to receive it. So what happens, the frequency is same, but the receiving of this frequency is happening at a different time slot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 time slot. Say in the first time slot, okay, subscriber 1 will get the same frequency. In the second time slot, same frequency. Third, 4 at a different time. Of course, the times, if this is 0.577 millisecond, you just divide this 0.577 millisecond by 7. In a short time, it will be available for a very short time. Next, this subscriber will get the same frequency, this subscriber. Now what happens, this is going to get repeated. So you just imagine there is a first frame, 8 time slot. Okay, this is one cycle is finished. In the next cycle, again, this 8 subscriber will get, you can see here 1, 2, 3, etc. 8. Again 1, 2, 3, etc. 8. Okay, it repeats like this. Now this first subscriber is getting time slot here in the first frame, second frame, third frame. So he is getting the time slot as, I mean, in a very fast way, in a very short duration of time. Because of this technology, it is as if he is getting a continuous time slot for that particular carrier. I hope you understood. So this is how, since the time duration is very less from one frame to another frame, the subscriber still able to transmit this information as if he transmits in a continuously available frequency. So this is the concept of dividing the time in a given frequency. I hope I have answered his question. Any other question?
Chat box ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ one question.
What are the different challenges and facilities available in India to support 5G? The biggest challenge is the spectrum allocation. It will be very expensive. I'm not sure how many operators are really going to come forward, because in India, BSNL is almost, it is under a huge loss. Idea Vodafone is under a huge loss. They may not able to invest such a huge amount of money. Just imagine, just for 4G spectrum getting one frequency for one state, they need to invest around 15,000 crore. If they wanted to invest in all 29 crores, it is 15,000 into 29, that is for a spectrum charges. Then equally that much of amount need to be invested for buying the equipments. So if you are spending around 1 lakh crore for spectrum, nearly 1 lakh crore we need to invest on purchasing the equipment so that it can support the 5G. Now the question is, people are right now very happy with whatever the 4G it is supporting, unless and until different kind of applications are explored or marketed, making this 5G technology very popular will be a really a different kind of challenge. Another important challenge is it is operating beyond 3 gigahertz. So beyond 3, you just imagine 2G, when we are sitting inside our house, we get a very good network. When it comes to 3G and 4G, we need to come outside in order to get a better throughput or a better coverage. So always, if it is in LTE, you might have observed, always will come out to speak more clear. Means if it is operating at higher band, we are facing problem at 2.1, 2.3 gigahertz. 5G operates beyond 3 gigahertz unless and until multiple base stations are actually deployed in a given square feet area or in a given square kilometer area. You may not able to get a required penetration. So you will be having 5G technology, but you need to come outside for not to really enjoy that 5G. So, but the difficult thing is, deploying n number of base station, at least in a clutter like India. India is a very dense clutter, at least in urban areas. So deploying the n number of or the required number of base station to really enjoy that 5G throughput and 5G features, we need permissions and investment. Permission from the local authorities just for building one tower. Nowadays it is very difficult for the operators because of radiation hazards and other things. Social workers, NGOs will come and complain. You just imagine, when it comes to 5G, almost 10 times the base station deployment need to happen. Otherwise, we'll not able to actually experience the 5G features. So I think these are all some of the challenges that we have, at least as far as India is concerned. I think that's all. I think, yes, that's all. You can share my email ID if really anybody wants to discuss. They can always discuss with me.
One question is that energy efficiency in massive MIMO anta ide.
See, energy efficiency in massive MIMO. See, if you are using more number of what you call antennas, that is today, of course, technology wise it may be cost effective, but earlier it was very expensive. But as far as energy is concerned, just imagine if the same information needs to get transmitted by multiple antennas, definitely the just imagine that I have a one speaker. To make it little simple, let us assume that I have one mouth. I'm just talking to the people surrounded by me, and in place of one mouth, I'll have a two mouth. Obviously, I need not spend more energy to reach the same amount of people. So in other words, because if the number of cross section of the antennas, or if number of antennas are more, the complexity increases. But in order to transmit the information, energy required to transmit the information obviously is lesser when compared to the single antenna. Therefore, the MIMO technology basically helps in covering clutter with dense obstacles, and basically it suits for low coverage areas with less power transmission. Yes, I think I've taken up almost all the questions.
Research areas in 5G and
yeah, research areas in 5G, there are many research areas. You can work on the physical layers, you can work on the network layers, on security aspects. You can come up with lot of application layer research, which basically supports customized applications. Maybe it is IoT, maybe remote control operation, maybe robotic surgery. So at different layers, researchers can take up the work. In general, if you look at this slide, you can see here so many topics are there. Anybody interested, they can take up any one topic, either in a carrier aggregation. Lot of experimental works are required, or working in software defined network or a software defined radio, where it should able to support backward compatibility and should able to support operation at multiple bands. You can take up SDN or SDRA, MIMO is always a interesting area of research. You can take up work on smart antennas, microstrip patch antennas, slotted microstrip patch antennas, or there are very less work that has been done in the area of device to device communication. Probably lot of software applications and requirements are there, because it should get disconnected. Lot of intelligence are required. Maybe your machine learning or artificial neural network concepts need to be brought in, particularly to switch over from the mobile network to the device to device mode of communication. Lot of experimental work are have to be done, particularly if you go through some of the literatures under device to device communication. And in antennas there is an advanced beamforming technique. So all these topics are actually the area of research that any researcher who are interested in this 5G can take up and start working towards it.
Okay, sir. Thank you. You explained all questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Participants, the next session will start at 2:45 by Sandeep Sir Cisco from Cisco.